Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, Bill Reimer, your reluctant prophet, and I have a new epithet. I'm also calling myself the blue-collar philosopher because the radical woke ideologues, they couch their rhetoric in language so arcane that no normal-minded person can possibly understand their meaning. So in the wake of Trump's resounding victory, and including two famous Democrats and Elon Musk into his camp, I have the following thoughts. Our ideological dilemma. I have a warning. I'm reading overly simplistic posts from conservatives who simply don't understand the ideology behind the destruction of our institutions, yet they expect Trump, who is certainly no philosopher king, to solve a crisis of ideological possession. The only possible way to fight back against the woke brain worm is to understand how it works and why it has captured so many minds. Remember that we are now left with roughly half the population who believe in ideological insanity. We cannot simply dismiss them. Perhaps we might begin by asking our ideological opponents why the markets have roared into life even before Trump takes office. We might also remind them that fascism only permits private ownership under a state-regulated economy, which is precisely what we have had under our leaders, like Biden and Trudeau. We know that Trump intends to deregulate the economy, and that deregulation is diametrically opposed to fascism. As proof, Trump has appointed Elon Musk to rid the bloated bureaucracy of its regulatory inefficiencies and excessive control over the economy. The most astounding characteristic of radical social collectivists is that they invariably accuse their opponents of the very things for which they are guilty. Also, they adhere to their collectivist beliefs with religious zeal, despite the inherent contradictions in their belief system. Here's a quote from Dr. James Lindsay. Marxism is a form of revolutionary socialism, and Marxism itself is one set of theologies within that religion that has taken many different faces. Critical race theory is race Marxism, and queer theory is a kind of sexual Marxism. In the aftermath of the resounding Trump victory, which saw two high-profile Democrats and Elon Musk joining him, there will be little ability for the radical woke ideologues to explain what just happened, since all their pathetic excuses will fall flat in the face of this reality. Let the weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth commence, for the devil prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking whomever he may devour, knowing his time is short. They called Trump a racist and an orange Hitler mere hours before he won a landslide support from the very marginalized demographics he was accused of hating. Perhaps they are actually mentally ill. Perhaps they're living proof that postmodern cultural relativism is a parasitic mind worm. Detached from reason, all they are left with are feelings. And what they are feeling at present is emotional instability due to their narcissistic tendencies. Their beliefs have rendered them incapable of self-reflection, so they project their emotional instability onto others. Given Trump's astounding comeback, there will be more than a few of the world's tyrants, dictators, and warmongers who are currently crapping in their depends. I can smell the poo-poo from here, since such an overwhelming victory sends a crystal clear message to wannabe dictators like Trudeau and Starmer that their time remaining in office will likely be short. So though we might wish to say, let the leftist tears flow, because the age of arbitrary state control, endless proxy wars, manipulation by the deep state, and censorship of free speech will soon come to an end. Yet, it still leaves half the population incapable of facing reality. This is true despite the fact that the results of this election are due to divine providence, since God himself has thrown a spanner wrench into the machinery of godless tyranny. In the movie The Matrix, when Morpheus tells Neo that you have to understand that most people aren't prepared to be unplugged from the system, he's talking about a profound truth of human nature. The system is the matrix. In the Matrix is a metaphor of the illusion of what is real, an artificial construction designed to control and subdue humanity by giving them a false sense of reality. Most people today live trapped in this illusion, unable or unwilling to see beyond the veil of lies, manipulation, and control. Morpheus understands that, for many, the comfort of the system is preferable to the unsettling and often painful process of awakening to the truth. People have been conditioned from the cradle through years of indoctrination, sometimes generations, to accept the world as it is presented to them. Unplugged from this system is facing a harsh, sometimes unbearable reality that everything they thought was real is in fact a lie. This requires courage, willingness to embrace discomfort, and most importantly, a willingness to let go of what one thought was the truth. Morpheus also knew that those who are still connected to the system are often his most ardent advocates. Why? Because the system has become their identity. Their sense of self, their beliefs, their values are all tied to the illusion and constructions of that system. Threatening them is threatening everything they cherish. For many, it's easier to defend the system than to face the possibility that they have been deceived. So, in the face of this, there's a need for satire in defense of the truth. Diogenes was an ancient Greek philosopher who gained fame for his penchant for satirizing people. One memorable incident involved him positioning himself beside an archer who repeatedly missed the target, suggesting it was the safest spot to sit. On another occasion, Diogenes encountered a young boy, the child of a sex worker, throwing rocks at a crowd. He quietly cautioned the lad, "Be cautious, young one. Don't harm your own father." In a different encounter, when Diogenes requested spare change from a passing man who challenged him to persuade him, Diogenes retorted, "If I possessed the power to persuade you, I'd have convinced you to take a different course." Diogenes held a strong aversion to Socrates and Plato, even going to the extent of disrupting their lectures by audibly eating food. When Alexander the Great inquired why he was rummaging through the garbage, Diogenes replied, "I'm searching for your father's remains, but they are indistinguishable from his slaves' bones." Diogenes loathed the shallowness and hypocrisy of humans and favored the companionship of dogs. Though often referred to unkindly as Diogenes the dog, he accepted it as a compliment, remarking, "I am Diogenes the dog. I seek out the kind-hearted, challenge the avaricious, and confront the dishonest, which is precisely what I intend to do. On November the 5th, we were confronted with where too authoritarian not to exercise complete control meets too ideologically possessed to notice, versus those of us who believe that the entire process is too compromised and corrupt for us to hope anything other than more tampering, manipulation, gaslighting, where rabid ideologues scream like stuck pigs that if by some miracle of God's good grace, reason, and sound judgment will prevail. It did. It prevailed. But it still leaves half of us on the wrong side of the road wondering what the heck happened their dream of creating a socialist utopia on earth. Utopia means nowhere, because such a utopia not only doesn't exist, but it cannot exist. Not noticing that the very same people from the State Department, the FBI, and the CIA who covered up the Biden family's corruption are the same folks who are propping up Kamala Harris running for the top job. If both candidates were plumbers, Trump would be the rude guy with plumber's butt who is actually capable of fixing the toilet, versus Harris, whose sole solution was to drop a lit cherry bomb into it, then amidst the shards of broken porcelain, proclaim loudly that under her administration, people will no longer need to use the crapper. Harris couldn't fix problems because she didn't intend to, which serves the deep state well, since they operate best in chaos and subterfuge. Ideology simply cannot be defeated at the polls. What people believe goes far deeper than what mere votes for political candidates can reflect. We are being confronted with a very clear choice: individual liberty and personal autonomy versus the dialectical materialism of Marx and Engels. Many of those who will choose the latter are completely unaware that they're actually supporting a bizarre blend of neo-Marxist and fascist ideology that I call Marxo-fascism. From Deuteronomy, verse 19, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. It is up to those of us who are awake and who understand to understand why our ideological opponents think what they do, and to help convince them that their ideology is false, that they need to get out of the matrix and get unplugged. These are thoughts to think and pray about on this November the 8th. God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend.